a lot of entrepreneurs that I talk with, it is the prophecy of starting a business. They deal with quite a bit of decision paralysis. It seems like a lot of different directions to go at once, and they have a monumental amount of stress on them.
Just from personal reflection, if you didn't know what anxiety was till 3 years ago, we ended up in a really tough spot in the business. And I literally was talking to my wife. I'm like, I feel like I'm a squirrel and a lion just chased me. The lion's gone, but I still am shaking. So like, you got to really start focusing on your wins, like celebrating even the win of stopping a loss, like celebrating the wins and the progress and the little things that are happening in the day to day. That allows you to, that you do that well, it doesn't leave room for all the anxiety and loss because you're thankful for what you have. So these are all small things that I'm Erik Huberman, founder and CEO of Hawke Media. We're an outsourced CMO and marketing team to about 600 brands, almost 300 full-time people. Go and identify holes in someone's marketing organization and can spin up a full team, one person. Everything's a la carte, month to month, super easy to work with. The idea is we want to be the best at what we do, but easy to work with.
Awesome. And you've got a tale to weave us today, a story to tell. Can you tell me where it starts?
Oof. I mean, it was an ongoing lack of clarity and challenge, I'd say, for a long time. And obviously you prompted this conversation, but the idea is in our industry, you build an agency, you work with a bunch who you can for a while, and you take whatever business you can get. And then over time, when you build credibility and connections, you start to work up market. And eventually, where most agencies end up at about half our size is they're working with the Fortune 2000. They don't take any other business because it's not as stable and it's not as sexy from their opinion. And they just, you end up with most agencies that have any type of longevity and credibility only working with the bigger companies. And so all the small and medium businesses in the world are left to fight for themselves. But private equity expects you to do this. So if you ever want to raise money or sell your company, you better go up market. The stability, again, is a big thing. So if you want some sanity around, that you're going to have long contracts, you're going to make better margins, have higher minimums, bigger dollar amounts, going up markets where you're going to win all that. Employee attraction wise, you're probably gonna get people that want to work on Nike a lot faster than the random shoe brand you down the street. And so, there's a reason that's the playbook, but that is the playbook. And so there's a lot of pressure if you're studying the industry to go be that same thing and be like, okay, we got all the credibility now. Let's stop working with small and medium businesses and only work with the big guys. And so I'd say that was the challenge that was pulling at me and trying to decide figure out what to do there. And I say pulling at me because a lot of people, that's not a bad thing. That's their goal from the beginning, is to not work with these things. But for me, I built Hawke Media because I found that at the time when I started, there were 24,000 marketing agencies in the US and 99% of them are full of shit. And now there's 90,000. So there's even more people that are full of shit in the marketing world because that percentage didn't go down. And so I built 2 e-commerce companies before this. I've been an entrepreneur for 20 years. And I've just dealt with so much crap on that side that I built a company that I was passionate about in Hawke Media because I wanted to have a marketing partner that could be incredibly good at what we did, but not have all the things that make it hard to work with, going up market, the long contracts, high minimums, blah, 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 blah. And that was why I built this. That was where my passion came from, is I was like, everybody needs this. Everybody needs a company they can actually rely on the marketing side that's not just selling snake oil. And so the idea that now I've accomplished it to some level, so I'm going to ignore all those people that need it and go work with the people that could work with those big companies anyways and can sign long contracts and high minimums and all that, just always felt wrong. Like that, as much as maybe that's the right financial move, that might be the right, enterprise value move, like a market need standpoint, from a pain point standpoint, from a passion standpoint, it didn't fit. And so, through that sort of coaching, I was being coached to go up market. I, dabbled in it. We tried building enterprise teams, doing both, straddling it, and even starting to figure out, can we raise our average order value and start working up market? And what I found was a lot of things in life, the cliches of the benefits are not necessarily better. Whether it's a cost benefit analysis, once you know all the costs of going up market, it's actually not better. It's just different. And so the metric in our industry that improves when you work with bigger companies is churn. You're not going to lose businesses as fast if they're bigger companies. They make slower decisions, so your churn number goes down. but there's so many other things that are bad. Your sales cycle goes through the roof. Your competition compared to addressable market goes through the roof. Your total addressable market in the Fortune 2000 is 2000. Your addressable market for all SMBs, there's 600,000 new small businesses starting every month in the United States. So you start looking at the landscape, and this is what I had to do. And then I was, my gut was telling me don't go up market, even though that's what everybody like us has done. And they've done very well. I have several friends that have done that exact playbook and have made hundreds of millions of dollars going up market and doing really well. And I was like, but why I started this, that's still a pain point. That's still a problem. There's still no like go-to small and medium business marketing agency. Like I'd say mine is, but I know we haven't even scratched the surface. We might sign, 30 to 60 new clients a month, not 600,000. So we're still got a ways to go here. And so I'm like, there's still just this opportunity to be that partner and be that company from both a branding and awareness standpoint, as well as like, I always go like, yes, we're better than every other agency. And I mean that sincerely. I think we are one of the best absolute marketing partners out there. And I know that there's a ton of room for us to still improve over what we're doing now. And so I think we have, an ongoing mission to be better and better and better at what we do while maintaining the idea of being easy to work with. And so again, it took a while to get that clarity that like, screw the PE funds, screw the bankers and the people, the consultants in the industry and the sort of, this is how it's been done, method. I'm going to do it this way. And I'm going to build a company that's sustainable, that I like to run. And then who cares if someone wants to buy it or not? And I believe in my gut, as well as practically when I go and evaluate it, the business I can build and sustain.
Now, you talked a lot about your gut. It's a story of the life. He is a life coach, business coach, executive coach. Who was this person that was telling you? Was it several people that were telling you go
yeah. Because I'd say a few times a year we'll take a call from a private equity firm just to hear them out. Like we're not interested in selling, but like sure, we'll have a phone call. All of them said the same thing. Bankers that we'll talk to. I like talking to investment bankers in our space because they know what's happening in the market, and so they can tell me here's what everyone else is doing, and they love to talk. So and all of these people, as well as other people that have built agencies and advisors and all that, like you should really look at longer term contracts and like really more stable revenue, which I get why. Trust me, I'm the one living it. It'd be really nice to know that this is exactly what we're going to make for the next year. But I also came from running e-com brands where it's like, we don't know if someone's going to buy another pair of pants next month. So it's not really ever been my reality in business.
Yeah. So you talked about your gut. And we hit on the gut and intuition a lot on the show. And so I'm curious, like, when you have that feeling inside, what is your typical process that you use to evaluate the feeling and then actually execute and make a decision?
Well, I have a super rational view of the gut. I don't think it's magic. I think it's your brain processing something faster than you can consciously process. So I think it's your subconscious, whatever you'd call it, saying, oh, like, when my gut's telling me don't go up market, it's because something's happened in the back of my brain that has already analyzed the situation and has looked at a problem. And until I can catch up with that in terms of consciously, I try to analyze that. Like, why do I feel this way? Why is my gut telling me not to do this? Because sometimes, and this is where, quote, trusting your gut, you got to be careful. My gut might not be telling me not to do that because I don't think it's fun. That might be the gut reaction. It might be that I'm going, I don't want to work with Nike, which is
your subconscious has processed that side of it as well. It's just, I don't prefer to do that. Sure.
Yeah, exactly. So it could be that simple. So it's analyzing and then looking at why is my gut telling me this? Like, I don't just say, oh, my gut says this, so I'm done. Like, because your gut, again, what the source of that pause is important. And figuring out, is this a preference? Is this rational? Because it could be emotional too. Your gut can be an emotional piece too, where it's like, that's going to be hard. Could be your gut telling you that. So why am I resisting this? And what is it about it? And also knowing yourself, like in that example, I don't really resist hard work. Hard work's never scared me. So I generally can assume it's not because it's going to be hard. In the case of this, like, why would I resist? And it goes the other way. Like, let's say it's practical, but also like, again, rationally, I've learned the lesson many times where I think I'm special and I'm going to do things differently and I'm completely wrong. Like I thought I was smarter than everyone else. And then I run down a path doing it one way and I go, oh, that's why everyone does it this way. And so, there's sometimes where it's like your gut can be wrong in that sense. And so it's trying to analyze like, okay, why is it doing that? And what is driving that? And I don't know, it's a bit of a self-awareness thing where like when I conscious mind catches up to my gut, there's like an actual physical feeling of like, oh, that's why. Got it. Like I feel like this almost, I don't know whether it's dopamine or serotonin or something, but I feel a positive chemical response in my body when my mind matches with my gut. And it's like, that's what this is. It's like an aha. That's why I feel this way. And then I can analyze it rationally and go, now that I feel that way and my gut's told me that and it's driven me to this, and that's why my gut's telling me this, is that right? And if it is, great, let's move forward. And so that's why I straddled with this, was my gut was saying, stick to the plan. It's working. Don't do this, don't do that. To the point that, like, here's another good example of this, in a real example. We've called ourselves your outsourced CMO forever. But then I had a few senior CMOs at big companies go, oh, you're trying to take my job, and realized, ironically, the insecurity of the CMO is directly correlated to the size of the company. Bigger company CMOs are so insecure, it's crazy, which means that our calling ourselves your outsourced CMO is alienating those bigger companies. Well, if I'm trying to maybe straddle going up market and opening up that market up while still sticking to the SMB, I got to get rid of your outsourced CMO tagline because they're being alienated. I felt weird about doing it. I was going to do a full rebrand and change everything. I held it back to just sunsetting your outsourced CMO, but didn't like overhaul everything. And after a year, I heard my top salespeople still selling your outsourced CMO on the phone. And they're like, yeah, because that's what works. And I'm like, but we're going to scare off these people. They're like, that's not our market. That's not who's buying this shit anyways.
Doesn't
Like,
matter.
once in a
Yeah.
while, we sign a big brand, but comparatively, it doesn't matter. And so then we brought it back and we're like, all right, good call. And that was me not trusting my gut in the meantime and trying to straddle these two things instead of identifying, why do I not want to do this? I was like, well, I'm getting all this advice and all this, and I should probably, and being a little lost. And frankly, the past few years, business wise, was harder for most people than it was the past 8 years before that. So it was like, all right, we're trying to find our way and listening to a few too many outside voices versus really figuring it out.
I want to shift gears a little bit. So a lot of entrepreneurs that I talk with, it is the prophecy of starting a business. They deal with quite a bit of decision paralysis. It seems like a lot of different directions to go at once, and they have a monumental amount of stress on them. I'm curious, in your time as an entrepreneur, first of all, I'm assuming that you've had that stress before, that you've experienced that. The opposite of dopamine and serotonin, you're having
Right.
cortisol course through your system. And so how have you learned to deal with that stress? What do you do to mix those neurochemicals up and get those to go away and get the good ones to come out? And what are some of the things that we can do to flex that muscle instead of defaulting to stress? How can we quickly snap ourselves
Totally.
out of that
You know,
and get past that decision paralysis?
there's a lot of studying about this now, and I think there's a lot of validity. If you over focus on your stress and you name it, there's this whole like, and I don't have my PhD in psychology, so like take this with a grain of salt. I'm not a psychiatrist or a psychologist, but just from personal reflection, if you didn't know what anxiety was till 3 years ago, we ended up in a really tough spot in the business. And I literally was talking to my wife. I'm like, I feel like I'm a squirrel and a lion just chased me. The lion's gone, but I still am shaking. Like, what the fuck is this feeling? I was like over and over again repeating this. And she's like, do you mean you're anxious? Like, oh yeah, that makes sense. This is what anxious feels like. She's like, I'm sorry, you're 30 something years old. You didn't know what anxiety feels like. Are you kidding me? But no, the truth is, and it wasn't the first time I dealt with stress. It was just a lot of things hit at once that the resilience I had got beat down. And that's part of it too, is your resilience has a limit. And so that was the first time I ever had to deal with it. And it took me 6 to 12 months to get out of that consistent feeling of anxiousness. And when I say six, it got better every day, but like to fully feel like I was probably a year. And I will say what helped the most was actually shoving it down and compartmentalizing it, which everyone says is a bad thing to do. And that's where you're going to boil over. But I don't agree. I think that your neural pathways develop as you use them. And so if you stop yourself from going down that path over and over again, I'll get killed by some psychologists right now when this gets published if they see it. But I've experienced, not a scientific study, personal experience, I've found that stress is inevitable in business, running a business. You're going to deal with stressors, and it's going to be at times existential. You're going to feel like you're going to lose everything. I don't know many businesses that don't have that at some point. And when I say lose everything, the example I'll give is like, the government breaking up Google. Like those guys have been in business for how long? Is literally one of the most successful companies of all time. And now they're dealing with the government wanting to just destroy break up their company. I'm not saying I agree or disagree, to be clear. I'm just saying like that's an example of like this. There is no finish line where it's good and you're never going to have to deal with anything. And so knowing that, there's no point in allowing it to hit you emotionally. Like there really isn't. It doesn't help you. In fact, when you get into protective nature because you're scared and you get into that fight or flight, unless your default is to fight, which thankfully I think most entrepreneurs it is, you can really hurt. And it can hurt your ability to execute, to think, to enjoy your business, like all those things. So you kind of have to take you have to be pretty level headed with this stuff. And I think like most things, the brain's a muscle, and what you train it to do and what you focus on feels really awkward at first, but then it starts. And the way I would explain that, like I also never dealt with any loss of sleep with business. And again, I had plenty of things to stress about over the first 8 years. It wasn't like we never dealt with a catastrophe, but all of a sudden I got, I hit my resilience and I started losing sleep, not being able to eat, two things I had never experienced as a part of being stressed out. And so it took me a while, but I just like literally, if things would start popping in my head about business and work that were stressing me out, I just literally force my mind to think about something else. And so it was literally just a force function of like, nope, not going to do that. And it was hard at first. The same thing is celebrating small wins. Because again, as you said, like it's kind of, I don't know the actual science, but with dopamine and serotonin, you can't really they say you can't have gratitude and anxiety. You can't be thankful for what you have and anxious. It's really hard to sit in the same space, or depression, I guess, and gratitude. So you got to really start focusing on your wins, like celebrating even the win of stopping a loss. Like celebrating the wins and the progress and the little things that are happening in the day to day. That allows you to that you do that well. It doesn't leave room for all the anxiety and loss because you're thankful for what you have. So these are all small things that takes forcing that. If you're not used to it, if you're already there, and you're not, none of this is really relevant to you. But if you're not there, if you're stressed out all the time, or you're anxious, or you're challenged, if you start focusing on like, but I get to live this life and I get to do this and I get to do that. And I'm fortunate enough to have built something that people get to make a living off of. And maybe not everything's going where you want it to be, and it's not going as well, or it's scary. But if you're thankful for where you are, and it's just about, now I need to fix these things to make it better, and it's about progress, not about sustainability, then it's just way easier to manage. And you're going to have we can't share, frankly, but last week I probably had the most existential crisis for the business I've ever had. And what I can say is, and I fixed it. And what's crazy is I didn't know anything about this problem until Monday. And then by Thursday, it was a huge problem. And by Sunday, I literally worked all weekend. I did not sleep and got it fixed, and we're done. And nothing, it's nothing now. It's literally a nothing. So it's like with some lessons on how that never happens again, frankly. So I would take it as a win today. Last week, it was not fun, but I will tell you, yes, there was a little anxiety because it was a really big problem that I did not know how we were going to get out of, but I did not lose sleep. I did not lose my appetite. Lost my appetite a little bit, but I still ate normally. I lost like 15 pounds the first time this happened. Like I just couldn't eat for like a month. Like it was, and as I said about the lion metaphor, the lion was gone and I was still just so wound up. I just couldn't get my senses about me. I was just worried about the next lion coming to get me, kind of thing. This time, because I've trained myself in that way and I've now dealt with that and I figured out there's no purpose in this. It was just about what are we going to do about it? How do I need to do? I got to put in the work. I got to put in the time. I've got to put some other things aside that are less important. But no, I got to get a good night's sleep too, so I can think straight. And no, I got to eat so I keep up my energy. And it was just more of in the pocket rational thinking versus shaking and scared and my head spinning. When my head would start spinning about all the ways this could go wrong, I would remind myself there's no point in going down a worst case scenario right now. If we get to if this goes back, continues to go bad, I'll have to figure out the next step. But I need to look at what's right in front of me. What do I need to fix and just go from there? Or it's not valuable to do this other stuff. And that came from years of, again, learning from having a bad experience and changing it and really focusing on that. And again, now came out of this. And I will say though, the celebration is less too. That's kind of the downside, is if you keep your lows more temperate, your highs are more temperate too. And that is the one thing, is you might not feel the ecstasy of success either, but it allows it to be sustainable.
I think probably the solution to that is teaching your team how to celebrate, having a system of celebration, because I feel so good when other people are getting hyped.
Yep.
Right. Fair. Around me, I kind of marinate in that feeling. And so it's good for me to empower others.
Yep.
I mentioned an interruption technique a couple of times, and
Yep.
you said several different phrases that you hit on whenever the stress is hitting you.
Yep.
And one of them was like, it doesn't help me, it doesn't make sense to worry right now. I've got to actually just solve it.
Yep.
There a mantra or a specific thought that you have, or is it a list of logical statements that you run through every time? Have you written these down? Are they in a process? Like, have you atomic habited where it's like, when I feel anxious, I ask myself this, I ask myself this, I ask myself
Question.
this.
It's something I reflected on this time too, which I do is I try to think about things I'm excited about or happy about. And I have a lot of great things to be happy about. So it's like, and almost everybody does. Like in the depths of it, you don't, but like I've got an incredible family, extended and nuclear. I love my wife, my daughter. I have a lot of great hobbies. I have fun with a lot of things. Like there's a lot of things to be excited about. I think I need to be more processed about like just default to this. Usually, frankly, it's my family. It's like all this can burn and everything can burn in hell as long as they're okay. I'm fine. Like it's like I'll go live in a tent with my family and enjoy the hell out of it. So it's not, that's the reminder that helps. But again, usually this comes up not when I'm sitting here at a desk at 1 p.m. trying to like fight through things. It's usually like you put your head on the pillow and now your brain just starts going. So it's like, what can I think about? Like even just like what I got to do with my daughter that day, something like that I try to like focus on. And then just simple meditations, focus on your breath. Just breathe in, breathe out, count. Like that simple stuff that just doesn't allow your brain to spiral is a big one. The mantra, back to that I tell myself constantly, and it really helps, is work like most won't so you can live like most can. Because when I'm looking at this, it's not that I feel for my life, which it feels sometimes physically or emotionally like that. Like, but rationally, like my life will go on. Like I'm thankfully, and my wife and I joke about this all the time. Like I am not, I know I have a lot to lose. I don't do anything illegal. I'm never going to jail. Like that's not who I am. I'm keep a very, very clean. So the worst that happens is I lose my business and we have to figure out the next thing. Like we'll be fine. So it's never like actually threatening life, but it can feel that way at times. And so it's more about that reminder. And so the work like most won't so you can live like most can't, it's just a reminder of why I do it because I really do have a choice. And that's also like the control mechanism of like, I could shut down everything tomorrow, be done, walk away. Do I want to do that? Well, last week, again, this big crisis, I know that
Think about it.
that was the bad case scenario at the end of it was, are we going to go bankrupt? Like, could this actually take out the company? Like,
Right.
unrealistic outcome, but a possibility. And when you go through that thought process and you really don't want that to happen, well, there's your reality back to the gut. My gut's telling me, no, I don't want to bankrupt my company. Well, turns out I like running my company then.
Erik, where can everyone find you?
@ Erik Huberman on any social, super easy to find.
Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.